The story of the Wagner Group is not just about mercenaries, it's about a new, shadowy form of warfare perfected by the modern Russian state. Imagine for a moment an army that can fight your battles, secure your interests abroad, but officially, it doesn't exist. This was the central idea behind Wagner. It was designed to be a deniable instrument of state power, a tool that allowed the Kremlin to project military force into conflict zones without leaving any official fingerprints. This provided what international relations experts call plausible deniability, a convenient veil that could be lifted or dropped depending on the political climate. The group operated in this gray zone, a ghost army serving very real geopolitical aims, blurring the lines between private enterprise and state-sponsored aggression for everyone watching. This clandestine force first materialized in 2014, its emergence perfectly timed with Russia's annexation of Crimea and the subsequent eruption of conflict in Ukraine's Donbas region. Here, among the chaos and separatist fighting, Wagner's so-called Little Green Men made their debut. They were professional, well-equipped soldiers without national insignia, supporting pro-Russian militias and carrying out sensitive combat missions that the official Russian military could not. Their early tasks were crucial. They helped secure key objectives, trained local fighters, and participated in decisive battles, all while Moscow publicly denied any direct involvement. This first campaign in Ukraine became the blueprint for Wagner's future operations across the globe, a successful test run for a new model of hybrid warfare. At the heart of this formidable enterprise were two very different but complementary figures, Yevgeny Prigozhin and Dmitry Utkin. Prigozhin was the money and the political connection, an oligarch famously nicknamed Putin's chef because of his lucrative catering contracts with the Kremlin. He was the strategic mastermind and financier, pulling the strings from behind the scenes and leveraging his close ties to the highest levels of the Russian government. He provided the vast resources needed to fund, equip, and sustain a private army, effectively transforming his wealth into a formidable tool of foreign policy. For years he denied his connection to the group, only admitting to founding it in 2022, when its role became too big to hide. On the other side was Dmitry Utkin, the hardened military professional who gave the group its muscle and its name. A former lieutenant colonel in Russia's GRU Spetsnaz, or Special Forces, Utkin was the quintessential field commander. He brought discipline, tactical expertise, and an unwavering ruthlessness to the organization. His call sign, Wagner, reportedly chosen due to his fascination with the German composer Richard Wagner, became the moniker for the entire mercenary outfit. Utkin was responsible for recruitment, training, and leading the men on the ground. Together, Prigozhin's financial power and Utkin's military know-how created a perfect storm, forging a private military company that was more effective and influential than any before it. After proving its effectiveness in Ukraine, the Wagner Group's next major deployment was to the war-torn landscape of Syria, starting in 2015. This mission was a defining moment for the group, serving as a crucible that hardened its fighters and expanded its operational scope. Initially sent to support the embattled regime of Bashar al-Assad, Wagner mercenaries quickly moved from advisory roles to frontline combat. They were instrumental in key government victories, most notably the bloody battle to recapture the ancient city of Palmyra from the Islamic State. Syria was where Wagner truly honed its skills as a shock troop force, learning to operate in complex, multi-sided conflicts far from home and solidifying its reputation for brutal efficiency. It was also in Syria that the group established a model for financial self-sufficiency, reducing its direct reliance on the Russian Ministry of Defense's budget. Prigozhin's business empire struck a deal directly with the Syrian government, a classic guns for resources arrangement. A company linked to him, Evropolis, was granted contracts to liberate and secure oil and gas fields from militants. In return for their combat services, the company received a hefty 25% share of the profits from the captured energy assets. This ingenious arrangement gave Wagner a steady revenue stream, allowing it to fund its own expansion while also enriching its patrons, intertwining military conquest with lucrative business ventures. With its Syrian model proving successful, Wagner turned its sights to Africa, where it began a rapid and sweeping expansion. The group offered a comprehensive security package to unstable governments across the continent, particularly in nations like the Central African Republic, Sudan, Libya, and Mali. In exchange for propping up regimes, fighting rebels, and providing VIP protection, Prigozhin-affiliated companies were awarded lucrative mining concessions for gold, diamonds, and other precious minerals. This expansion transformed Wagner into a global enterprise, a Hydra-headed organization that combined military operations with resource extraction and political influence campaigns, effectively making it a kingmaker in some of Africa's most volatile regions. Despite being technically illegal under Russian law, the Wagner Group operated with the full, albeit unofficial backing of the Russian state. Its fighters were often transported on Russian military aircraft, treated in Russian military hospitals, and supplied with weapons and intelligence from the GRU. This deep-seated connection allowed Moscow to pursue its foreign policy objectives with a layer of plausible deniability, though this veil grew thinner over time. The relationship was symbiotic. Wagner advanced Russia's interests in exchange for state protection and logistical support. It wasn't until June 2023 that President Vladimir Putin himself finally admitted that the Russian state had fully funded the group all along, confirming what the world already knew. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, the Wagner Group was thrust from the shadows into the global spotlight. Its role became more critical than ever as the regular Russian army faltered. To meet the immense demand for manpower, Prigozhin embarked on an unprecedented recruitment drive, touring Russian prisons to enlist convicts into his ranks. He offered pardons and freedom to inmates who would survive a 6-month tour of duty on the front lines. This controversial strategy swelled Wagner's numbers to an estimated 50,000 fighters, turning it into a formidable force composed of hardened criminals and seasoned mercenaries, ready for the most brutal assignments. This newly expanded force was thrown into the fiercest battle of the war, the fight for the city of Bakhmut. For months, Wagner led the assault, employing relentless and costly human wave tactics that earned the battle the grim nickname of the Bakhmut meat grinder. Prisoners were reportedly used as cannon fodder, sent on near-suicidal charges to overwhelm Ukrainian positions through sheer numbers. The fighting was savage and attritional, resulting in tens of thousands of casualties on both sides. In May 2023, after nearly a year of brutal combat, Prigozhin declared victory, capturing the ruined city. This victory, however, came at a staggering human cost and severely deepened the growing rift between him and Russia's military leadership. The tensions between Prigozhin and the Russian Ministry of Defense, which had been simmering for months, finally boiled over in June 2023. Accusing the military brass of incompetence and of deliberately starving his fighters of ammunition, Prigozhin launched an armed rebellion. On June 24, his forces seized the southern military headquarters in Rostov-on-Don without a fight and began a shocking march for justice toward Moscow. For a brief, tense 24 hours, it seemed as though a civil war was imminent. The world watched in disbelief as Wagner's column advanced, facing little resistance and threatening the very seat of power in the Kremlin. Just as his troops were within 200 kilometers of the capital, Prigozhin abruptly called off the mutiny. A deal, reportedly brokered by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, was announced. Prigozhin and his fighters were offered amnesty, with the promise that they would relocate to Belarus. The rebellion was over as suddenly as it had begun, leaving a trail of questions and a permanently damaged image of Putin's authority. Prigozhin, once a trusted ally, was now seen as a traitor who had committed the ultimate act of betrayal. The brief but dramatic mutiny exposed deep cracks within Russia's power structure and set the stage for a final, tragic act. The final chapter for Wagner's charismatic and rebellious leaders came to a dramatic and violent end. On August 23, 2023, exactly 2 months to the day after the failed mutiny, a private jet carrying Yevgeny Prigozhin, Dmitry Utkin, and other senior Wagner commanders crashed in the Tver region, northwest of Moscow. All 10 people on board were killed. The timing was too precise to be a coincidence for most observers, and speculation immediately pointed toward an assassination orchestrated by the Kremlin as retribution for the June rebellion. While Russian officials denied any involvement and cited technical failure, the crash effectively decapitated the Wagner Group, leaving the powerful mercenary army without its founder, its commander, and its entire top leadership. In the wake of their leaders' deaths, the future of the sprawling Wagner empire became highly uncertain. The Kremlin moved swiftly to dismantle Prigozhin's network and bring its remnants under state control. The thousands of Wagner fighters who had been exiled to Belarus were given a choice: sign contracts with the Russian Ministry of Defense, retire, or follow the group into its new iteration. Many of Wagner's most valuable assets, particularly its lucrative operations in Africa, were gradually absorbed by structures directly controlled by Russian military intelligence. The brand itself was too valuable to discard entirely, but its independence was finished, marking the end of an era for the world's most infamous private army. The process of rebranding and restructuring has already begun. In Africa, where the group's presence remains crucial for Russian influence, Wagner's operations have been partially folded into a new entity known as the Africa Corps. This new formation operates directly under the supervision of the Russian Ministry of Defense, ensuring its loyalty to the state. However, the Wagner name still carries significant weight and brand recognition on the continent. In a testament to this enduring legacy, a monument honoring Prigozhin and Utkin was unveiled in Bangui, the capital of the Central African Republic, in late 2024, attended by the country's top officials, demonstrating the deep ties the group had forged. Looking ahead, the Wagner saga serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of private armies and the volatile nature of power within authoritarian states. While the original group led by Prigozhin is gone, the model of using quasi-private forces for deniable operations is likely to persist as a key element of Russia's foreign policy toolkit. The Africa Corps and other successor organizations will continue to project Russian power, secure economic interests, and engage in hybrid warfare, but they will do so under the firm and direct command of the Kremlin. The wild, entrepreneurial, and rebellious spirit of Prigozhin's Wagner is dead, replaced by a more institutionalized and predictable tool of the state.
So hit that subscribe and ring that bell too, for history's wonders waiting for you. Billy at Works, let the knowledge ignite, exploring the past with all of our might.